is a book review of The Concrete Surfer. It's just come out, 2020, and it's 80 pages, and it's from Rebellion. Rebellion bring out all these brilliant books, UK comics, and it's so great that they are bringing these out finally, because these series just been lost, obviously, in comics that have been stuck away in lofts, etc., or just basically lost and thrown away over the years. So it's really great that this company is bringing out more and more of these great series. I mean, obviously there were some pretty rough stories, but there were some gems, and they deserve to be reprinted and stored away in a lovely book like this. And this is, obviously it's a paperback, so it's, you can see it's a paperback. It's in black and white, of course, 80 pages, and they're Pat Mills and Christine Ellingham being the artist. It's got a biography at the back as well, so there's some information about her and Pat Mills, of course. Now it's got some colour pages here. So you've got some Slave of the Swan. Now it's got the colour covers, obviously the ones that had the story, Concrete Surfer. Hasn't obviously got everything. And the stories were from 28th of January 1978 to the 10th of June 1978. Includes obviously Jinty and the Jinty Summer Special 1978. I love summer specials, though I didn't buy any of these. I have bought many Jinty issues, and there's some really great stories. Hopefully at some point all of them will be turned into these sort of collections like this, because they deserve real nice quality paper, and this is very nice quality paper. It's not shiny particularly, but still very decent paper, and also decent reproduction. I can't complain about the reproduction at all. You just look at the quality, it's absolutely superb. And obviously now, if you've probably got the Jinties, unless you were very lucky and got very, very well kept copies, lots of them are probably pretty brown and tanned and everything else. I know virtually all of my old copies of UK comics, generally most of them are pretty tatty, been around, read many times. So what have you got? You got this character. She's come home to Britain, sent home to Britain after her parents failed to establish a new life in Australia, and she stays with her perfect cousin Carol. Now this is Jean, and of course Carol is the gymnast, all-around charming top girl at school. Of course, that's always the setup we've got. And I must admit, I really enjoyed that relationship between the two characters. I wonder myself what it would be like to be, when you go to a house, you come all the way over to a place, and you're sort of like left in a situation where you've got this kid that's got like the perfect life, and you probably do get a point of sort of all the time. I imagine, I mean, obviously not everyone's like that, but I probably would think, hang on, I've got all these skills, I've got all this, but whatever she does. Carol, of course, everyone goes, oh, you're wonderful, Carol. You're the most amazing artist. You're the most amazing this. You're the most amazing. So it would actually get to the point where you start grumbling inside. And, of course, occasionally you start to get to the point where maybe that's just my personality. So I could understand where she was coming from. There's some lovely stories. But, of course, she got all these obviously her skills, skateboarding skills. And, of course, at this point, there wasn't much in terms of, this was at the start really of this sort of skateboards, and obviously eventually as things came along, so I'm not going to say what happens etc with what the story, of course there's competitions, all that sort of stuff, and in fact you can tell from obviously the front, because you've got Jean there and you've of course got Carol, so it's not really much of a spoiler to say that obviously there's a bit of a rivalry obviously on skateboards as well. I think the clue is on the cover, and also you can see it's obviously in a thing. However, let's get to the actual show a bit of the thing. Now, these stories were often 3. I mean, most UK ones, sometimes you had like 4 pages for the story. Not always, but this, for some weird reason, it was 3. So, Concrete Surfer. Obviously, every time I looked at it, we sort of Silver Surfer, but no, it's not. It's the Concrete Surfer. So, you got the Concrete Surfer, and then you've got Jean there doing some of her various jumps and the artwork I think is absolutely superb. All the way, it's a very easy story to read. And you've got again, poor Jean, she's got lots of problems. Obviously the kids in the school always take the side of Carol, because of course Carol is the most amazing kid, etc. So there's that sort of relationship. But I must admit, I did get slightly annoyed with Jean all the way through it, in the sense of the feeling that really maybe you should just get on with your own life. But of course then you wouldn't have a story. So you obviously have to saying, no, that's not going to be the way. So it's a bit of disgruntled all the way through. And it's a great bit when, of course, the story moves on. I don't want to say any more of the story because I just don't want to read it, because I think it's a genuinely really decent tale. Obviously, you can work out what's going to happen. I don't think anyone is not going to read this without thinking, you know what's going to... Like, it would be a really weird ending if it... So... But it's still, I think, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Brilliant artwork. Really great that they... However, slight disappointment, and it's also, of course, the way with UK comics was I never felt satisfied with the end. But it's, I suppose, like real life, in the sense that there is no end. Well, obviously there is an end, but you know, in the sense, I don't know why we should expect it to all be nicely wrapped up at the end. And that's always the problem with all British. Very rarely was I think that they were given the space to breathe and a final conclusion. Because quite often what happened in the UK, annoyingly, they would always have, great news! Your favourite issue is going to be amalgamated or whatever into some other issue that you didn't want it to be, of course. But it would be joined into Tammy, or it would be joined into Diana, and you'd end up your favourite character. Something storyline would stop. And you might probably find out later because they might put it into an annual or something. If you happen to just see that annual, you think, oh, finally that story was finished. Because obviously they probably had some of the stories pre-done, and then suddenly, oh, you know what, the series is closing. So it's nice. In many ways, this is the great thing about with the Rebellion, because they're bringing out lots of their own summer specials, etc., specials as they call it. 2020's got a whole nice batch of specials. So it's nice that, like Tammy and Jinty, where they, in a sense, can sort of round the story off a little bit more properly, maybe, where you sort of feel that... but of course, what's the point? Because you know she's obviously going to go on and become a super successful skateboarding expert, etc. She's obviously going to go to work, go to university or whatever. But do you want the story to continue unnecessarily beyond that point? So maybe I'm just being rotten to say, oh, it would be nice if they had a little bit more. Because it's like any TV series. What happens next? What happens to this character? What happens to the parents? What happens to the school? You know, so you can always go down that route. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend virtually all of the Rebellion books. I think are worth checking out. British comics have been sort of like forgotten to a degree. Obviously, American comics have crushed the British comics industry to the point, well, obviously most of the British artists go off to America. Why not, I guess? And also we had all the Spanish artists and all those sort of things that came to England. So it's just a pity that we haven't got more and more of these sort of comics. But it's great that Rebellion are bringing out these sort of specials. So hopefully, over time, the comic industry in the UK will really restart again, and maybe we'll start going into Smiths and whatever, all the newsagents, if we still have newsagents, and you could find these ones, because I loved the old UK comics of the 60s and 70s and 80s, and I still miss them. So great, this one. Concrete Surfer, totally recommended.